Hello again, everybody. We are back. I think it's time to do another Kindle sample selection. So, as I mentioned last time, I have a huge backlog of Kindle samples because every time I see a book that looks even marginally interesting, I go grab the sample and then I put it in a little Kindle and it just sort of sits there gathering dust. So, I have chosen a new one at random from the big old list, which I'll link down in the bits below. And the sample that I'm going to be talking about today is this one. This is Rouge, a novel by Mona Awad. And a quick glance on Goodreads says it's horror. Maybe it is, I don't know. I don't usually read horror, but we'll find out. So give me a few minutes to read this, then we'll be back to talk about it. Okay, so Rouge. Well, this is interesting. All right, so it starts off really interesting. It starts off with a couple of quotations. I'm a big fan of quotations. I love that. It is two. There's one by someone named Elena Ferrante. I have not researched who that is. Boy, my Kindle is bright. And it says, because what is the face? What, finally, is the skin over the flesh? A cover, a disguise, rouge for the insupportable horror of our living nature. And the second quote is from Berlin. This I do know, the song Take My Breath Away. Through the hourglass I saw you, in time you slipped away. When the mirror crashed I called you, and turned to hear you say, take my breath away. I'm always interested when authors start their book with a quotation because I kind of want to know, well, what does this have to do with anything? And I like that Elena Ferrante quotation. It does kind of add to the idea that this book is horror, right? Like the idea that what is outside, what we show, is false. It is not the truth of who we are. The things that we put on is a lie, in a sense, a disguise, as they say. Rouge for the insupportable horror of our living nature. And it kind of makes me think that this book will probably be about disguises. It will probably be about the things that we do to cover up who we really are, to disguise who we really are, especially if we are unhappy with or uncertain with who we really are. And we'll kind of get to that in a minute. But it starts off with a prologue in second person. Gutsy move, Ms. Awad. Second person, of course, is when the story says not about I did this or he did this, but you did this. And that is hard to pull off. Not a lot of writers are going to do second person to do it well. It's done very nicely. It's done the sort of narrator character talking to her mother, and her mother sort of telling a story about a beautiful, a story about envy, about being pretty, which then, as you kind of get into the main part of the story later, you realize, okay, this woman has a relationship with her mother that is probably a wee bit toxic. But yeah, it's an interesting way to start. It put me a little bit on edge because I know how tricky second person can be, but once we got into chapter one, we move smoothly back into first person, which is fine. It is great. So we have a few people. We have a narrator named Mirabelle, shortened to Mira. Sylvia, her mother's business partner, and her mother is dead. It begins at after the mother's funeral. And it's kind of an exploration into this relationship between mother and daughter. And there is kind of lurking throughout this work, throughout the sample anyway, is a woman named Marva, who seems to be like a skincare YouTuber, somebody who talks about what you should do to keep your skin looking supple and smooth. And all through this, and this is just the beginning, the sample, what is dominant here is skincare and skincare products. I mean, just in the first paragraph here, when she says she's hiding in her mother's bedroom, and she says she's looking at her mother's bathroom, I should say, not bedroom, and she says, there's the perfume she wore every day of her life on the marble counter, the Chanel Rouge Allure lipstick in its gold and black case. We have a title. A little cluster of red jars and vials on a silver tray. For the face, dear, for the face, I can hear Mother saying to me. Need all the help we can get, am I right? The cynical smile of the beautiful who know they're on the downhill slope. And all through this, on nearly every page, there's some reference to or mention of skincare products, and especially the idea that the narrator feels she needs them. It kind of comes up in the second person prologue that mom is beautiful but the narrator is not. She doesn't think that she is beautiful. She thinks that she is in need of a lot of boost and a lot of help. So yeah, it's kind of everywhere here throughout this section, and so I imagine throughout the book. So what I think, of course, the book entire is going to be is that sort of conflict within the narrator between how she sees herself and maybe how she really is, and perhaps, of course, all of this requirement, this need for skincare products, this need to kind of cover up and change and make up, is probably hiding something far deeper and far worse. If I had to guess, it is a massively toxic relationship with her mother, which is then going to be played out through, her mother's shop and her mother's business partner. There's a lot of cracked mirror motifs that we're seeing in this sample. That pops up a lot of times. There's a lot of red happening in this sample, which is not surprising for a story called Rouge. But red seems to come up in some fairly important points. So yeah, it's looking really interesting. And then kind of introducing sort of, I guess, the plot, as it were, or at least what I think is probably the plot, is where our narrator, Mira, gets a message, a message from somebody named Rouge, someone they do not recognize, who sends a message, the question being, is grief affecting your skin barrier? Tap to go live. And so she clicks on the link. There's a woman in red who she recognizes from a vision at her funeral. And it's kind of where Rouge, whatever Rouge is offering a secret to overcoming grief, a secret to controlling your life through beauty and skincare products. And yeah, it's kind of creepy, kind of weird, sure. So the narrative voice is nice. It's written well. I like the writing. That's fine. It's, as I said, it's when I went to Goodreads, it says it is horror. And again, I don't read a lot of horror. I have read horror. Horror is fine. It's not my first choice of genre. But I'm interested to find out what Rouge is in this book. Who is this mysterious woman in red that Mira keeps seeing? Is Mira ever going to get past this weird obsession with skincare products that she has? She talks at one point in the sample about having this very complicated skincare routine. And of course, I imagine all of this in itself is a commentary on how women are encouraged to pay a gross amount of attention. By gross, I mean large, not but a lot of attention to their appearance. They're given these messages that if your skin isn't clear enough, or if you have too many wrinkles, or if you don't look the right way, that your life is over. You are no longer a thing that is desirable to men, which apparently is the only function that you have, is to be desirable to men. So I have a feeling that if I were to predict the rest of the book, that a large part, a major theme through this book, is that idea that women need to throw off the belief that somehow they have to put so much focus into their looks, that somehow their looks are all they have, that somehow their looks determine who they are as a person. Because it kind of sounds that's like what Mira, our narrator, is doing, that she is associating those two things very closely, right? If I look good, if I use the right products, if I have the right skincare routine, then I am a person of value. And those things need to be disconnected. If you want to look good and do a big complicated skincare routine because it makes you happy, then by all means, go for it. But it doesn't make you a good person, and good people don't have to have that. And that's really important to know. I think the horror aspect will probably come from whatever this mysterious Rouge woman is. It may be that Mira is going to kind of get in too deep into something. I'm not as good at predicting my tropes in horror as I am in predicting them in other genres of text, but I have a feeling that that's what we're going to see, is that Mira's desire to be beautiful and to be accepted, especially to maybe gain the approval of her dead mother, is going to lead her down some very dark paths, which will be really, really hard to extricate herself from them. And hopefully by the end of the book, she will have realized that, as I said, she has value beyond how she looks, and that she does not need to spend so much time and effort and money and anxiety. This whole sample, one of the things I kind of like about it is this, just the beginning of the book is steeped in anxiety. You just can feel it radiating off the page. And hopefully Mira learns how to get past that. But again, because it's horror, it will not be easy. So I think it's a neat one. Would I purchase the book? Sure. I don't think I'm I don't know. Am I the target audience for this? No, probably not. But it's the writing is nice. It seems to look good. I'm in it to find out if Mira figures herself out. I don't do a complicated skincare routine, so I feel like there's stuff here going here which is maybe going over my head, but that's okay. Maybe I can learn something. Always ready to learn something. So, would I recommend buying this book? Sure. Go ahead. I think Rouge looks like a pretty fun read, and something that I think we'll all enjoy. So I'll put it on my list of books to read. Hopefully I'll get to it. Like I said, that list gets longer and longer every single day. But I think this one's good. I like the sample. I think I will like the book. So thank you very much for coming around and doing a little sample selection with me. We'll see what sample the Great Random List gives us next time. So until then, take care of yourselves. You are beautiful just as you are. Never forget it, and I'll see you next time.